Design trends usually behave like weather. They roll in, they get loud, and then they move on. Shiplap had its moment. All-white kitchens had their moment. Barn doors, honestly, are still arguing about whether their moment is over. But somewhere in the middle of all that noise, one layout just stayed. Open concept barndominiums didn't spike and fade like the others. They kept showing up in new builds across Texas, Tennessee, the Carolinas, Oklahoma, and by 2026, they become one of the few residential styles that actually grew steadier the longer it stuck around. Here's what's interesting, though. The reason people love this layout in 2019 isn't really the reason people are choosing it now. Back then, it was about feeling bigger. Today, that's barely half the story. There's one design principle, something most homeowners never consciously notice, that's quietly become the real reason this layout keeps winning. We'll get to it. But first, it helps to understand why so many people keep circling back to open living in the first place. Think about your actual day for a second. Not the house you imagine living in, the one you really live in. You wake up, and within 20 minutes, you've probably crossed through a kitchen, a living area, maybe a home office corner, all while half listening for a kid, a dog, a delivery truck, or a work call. Modern life doesn't happen in one room anymore. It happens in motion. That's really what's driving this. Hybrid work turned dining tables into desks. Family routines got less scheduled and more fluid. Entertaining stopped meaning formal dinner party and started meaning people wandering in and out with drinks while somebody's cooking. Homeowners aren't chasing a look. They're chasing a layout that keeps up with how they actually move. So here's something worth noticing next time you're home. Count how many times in a day you close a door to separate one activity from another versus how many times you just walk from one space into the next without thinking about it. For most people, it's not close. And that gap is exactly what's pulling buyers toward open floor plans in 2026. Which brings up a problem because a lot of people get this layout completely wrong before they even build it. Here's a mistake architects see constantly. Homeowners think open concept means fewer walls. That's it. Just take walls out and boom, open concept. It doesn't work that way. Removing a wall doesn't create good flow. It just creates a bigger empty box. What actually makes an open floor plan feel right is something far less visible. Intentional planning around sight lines, movement, proportion, and balance. A good architect is thinking about where your eye lands the second you walk through the front door, where your feet naturally want to go, how the kitchen island doesn't just sit there, but actually directs traffic around it instead of through it, where a ceiling beam or a change in flooring quietly tells your brain, this is the living room now, without a single wall doing the work. This is exactly why two barndominiums can have the identical square footage. Same 2,400 square feet, same open layout on paper, and one feels expansive and calm, while the other feels like a warehouse with furniture in it. The difference was never the wall count. It was the planning. Let's actually put two homes side by side. Home 1, a traditional layout. Separate living room, separate dining room, kitchen tucked behind a half wall. Hallways connect, everything like a spine. It's familiar. It's also, functionally, a series of boxes you walk between. Home 2, open concept barndominium, same footprint. Kitchen, dining, and living area share one continuous volume. Natural light from one side of the home reaches windows on the opposite wall with nothing blocking it. You can start a task in the kitchen and still be part of a conversation happening 15 feet away in the living room. Now, notice what changes. Circulation opens up. No hallway tacks eating into usable space. Light travels farther, so rooms that would normally feel dim at 4 p.m. stay bright. And there's a psychological trick happening too. When your eye can see further without interruption, your brain reads the space as larger, even when the tape measure says otherwise. Same square footage, completely different experience. That's not a decorating choice. That's architecture doing quiet, invisible work. If this kind of behind-the-scenes thinking is interesting to you, the stuff builders and architects know that most home tours never explain. That's exactly what we do here on Modern Luxury Homes USA. We break down why homes actually work, not just how they look in a listing photo. If that's useful to you, go ahead and subscribe because there's more of this coming. And here's a preview of where we're headed next. One of the biggest reasons open layouts keep succeeding has almost nothing to do with how they look. Let's walk through an ordinary Tuesday. Morning starts in the kitchen, coffee going, cereal bowls out, someone scrambling for a laptop charger. In a closed layout, that chaos is contained to one room, sealed off from anyone still trying to sleep or work. In an open barndominium, that same morning flows differently. A parent can start breakfast, watch a kid at the table, and still hear, or half see, someone finishing a video call in a nearby office nook, all without a single door being opened or closed. Midday, it's a working lunch, and the kitchen island becomes a second desk for 20 minutes. Evenings shift again. Friends come over, and instead of being stationed in a kitchen while the host disappears to cook, everyone ends up in the same shared space, talking, helping, existing together, because there's no wall dictating who gets to be part of the moment and who's stuck prepping dinner alone. None of this is really about aesthetics. It's about how a layout either supports the rhythm of a real day or constantly interrupts it. Open concept homes tend to support it, and that's a big part of why builders keep getting asked for this layout year after year. Ask a builder what they think about first on an open floor plan, and it's rarely paint colors or countertop finishes. It's structural. Where do the load-bearing beams go? And can they be hidden or turned into a design feature instead of an obstacle? Where are the actual room proportions once furniture is factored in? Because a 40-foot long open space with no visual breaks can feel more like an airport terminal than a home. Experienced builders are mentally placing a sofa, a dining table, and a kitchen island onto the blueprint before a single stud goes up, because open spaces are unforgiving. In a room with 4 walls, a bad layout is hidden. In an open one, every awkward decision is visible from every angle. That's why the barndominiums that feel effortless almost always had someone thinking hard about structure and proportion long before anyone picked out a light fixture. The finishes get the compliments. The framework is what actually makes the home work. Take a second and picture your current living room, kitchen, and dining area as they are right now. Now, mentally knock down the walls between them. Does that space breathe better, or does it just get louder and messy, eh? For a lot of people watching this, that mental exercise leads to a small but real realization. It's not that open concept is universally better. It's that most homes were never designed with a plan for openness. They were just built the old way, then partially open up later. If this changed how you're thinking about layout, even a little, tap the like button. It genuinely helps this kind of home design breakdown reach more people who are trying to plan a build the right way. Because there's another piece of this puzzle that shapes buyer decisions just as much as daily comfort does. And it's about what happens when it's time to sell. There was a theory floating around a few years back that open concept was dying, that buyers were suddenly craving separation and formal rooms again. The data from 2026 tells a more boring, more honest story. Preferences shifted at the edges, not at the core. Buyers still overwhelmingly gravitate toward homes that can adapt, spaces that can host a holiday dinner for 15 people one weekend and function as a quiet remote work setup the next Tuesday. That flexibility is a huge selling point because most buyers today aren't just purchasing a house for who they are now. They're buying for who they might be in 5 years. Open layouts also tend to photograph and show better during a sale because natural light and sight lines read well on a phone screen, which is where most buyers do their first pass of house hunting anyway. Now, to be clear, none of this guarantees resale value. Markets shift by region, by price point, by buyer generation. But the underlying appeal of adaptability, that's held up remarkably well, and it's a real factor in why builders keep leaning into this style. Of course, flexibility always comes at a cost. And this next part is the section a lot of home tours conveniently skip. Let's be straight about this because no layout is free of compromise. Privacy is the big one. Open spaces means sound travels. A phone call in the living room is audible from the kitchen, and a late-night snack run isn't exactly a stealth operation if someone's sleeping nearby. Noise, generally, behaves differently without walls to absorb and contain it. A blender at 7 a.m. is now a household event, not a kitchen event. Heating and cooling take some extra thought too. One giant volume of air is harder to zone than several small rooms, which is why a lot of open barndominiums lean on ceiling fans, zoned HVAC systems, or radiant flooring to keep temperatures even from one end of the house to the other. Organization gets trickier as well. Clutter in an open home is visible from almost anywhere, so storage planning has to work harder. And furniture arrangement stops being flexible guesswork. In an open room, every piece is doing double duty, both function and visual anchor. None of this makes open concept a bad choice. It just means the smart version of this layout accounts for these trade-offs up front, instead of discovering them after move-in. So, if walls are off the table, how do designers stop an open barndominium from feeling like one giant undivided room? They use everything except walls. Lighting does a lot of the heavy lifting. A pendant cluster over the dining table visually claims that zone, while recessed lighting in the living area sets a completely different mood a few feet away, without a single physical divider. Ceiling details help too. A change in ceiling height, exposed beams over the kitchen, or a coffered section over the living room tells your brain, subconsciously, this is a distinct space, even though the floor never changes. Rugs anchor furniture groupings and define a room within a room. Furniture placement itself becomes architecture. A sofa with its back to the kitchen creates a soft boundary that no one has to walk around. They just naturally understand it. And texture and color shifts. A warmer wood tone in the dining zone, a cooler palette in the living area. Give each space its own identity while staying visually connected to the whole. It's a completely different design language than working with walls. And when it's done well, you don't even notice the technique, you just notice that the space feels right. Now, open concept isn't the automatic right answer for everyone, and it's worth saying that plainly. If your work-from-home setup involves back-to-back video calls, a fully open plan can be genuinely disruptive. A closed office door isn't a luxury in that situation, it's a requirement. Multi-generational households, where grandparents or adult children are sharing the home long-term, often do better with some separated living zones, so everyone gets stretches of actual quiet rather than constant shared space. Some people simply need a decompression room, somewhere to close a door after a long day, and that need is completely valid. The honest answer is that open concept barndominiums solve certain lifestyle problems extremely well, and they're not built to solve every problem. The best builds acknowledge that up front, sometimes blending a mostly open main living area with one or two closed-off rooms for exactly these situations. That hybrid approach has actually been one of the quieter trends inside the open concept movement itself. Here's the part that separates a good layout decision from a great one. It's not just about how the home feels on move-in day. It's about what happens 5, 10, 15 years down the road. Open floor plans tend to age well because they're inherently easier to renovate. Want to reconfigure the kitchen in a decade? There's no load-bearing wall dictating where the sink has to stay. Family growing? An open plan flexes to accommodate a playroom corner today and a study nook tomorrow, without a construction crew needed to make it happen. There's also a maintenance angle people rarely think about. Fewer interior walls generally means fewer places for issues to hide and simpler mechanical runs for HVAC and electrical. And when it comes time to sell, that same adaptability that served your family well tends to appeal to the next owner too, because they're picturing their own life fitting into that same flexible shell. This is really the through line of the entire discussion. The layout isn't just solving today's needs. It's quietly protecting your options for every version of your life that comes after today. If there's one thing worth carrying away from everything we've covered, it comes down to 3 ideas. First, design around lifestyle, not trends. The homeowners who love their open concept barndominium years later are the ones who build it around how they actually live, not around what looked good in a photo. Second, flexibility creates long-term value. A layout that can adapt to a new job, a growing family, or a change in how you use your home will almost always outperform a rigid one, both in daily comfort and in resale appeal. Third, and this is the one worth remembering above all, good layouts solve problems before they create beauty. The prettiest home in the world still fails if the flow doesn't work. But a home that flows well, that supports how you actually spend your day, that's a home that stays beautiful because it stays useful. So here's something worth sitting with. If you were planning your own barndominium today, which one of these principles would change your approach the most? Lifestyle first design, long-term flexibility, or function before finishes? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Genuinely, some of the best insights on this channel have come from homeowners who've actually lived through these decisions and have opinions the rest of us haven't considered yet. And if this got you thinking about layout, there's another decision coming up in our next production that a surprising number of future builders overlook entirely. One that has almost nothing to do with square footage and almost everything to do with how a home actually functions once the excitement of move-in day wears off. The most successful homes rarely become timeless because they're fashionable. They stay valuable because they keep serving the people who live in them, long after the trend that inspired them has moved on to something else. A quick note before you go: layouts, construction costs, materials, and local regulations vary significantly depending on your region, your builder, and current market conditions. What works beautifully in one state may need real adjustments in another. Always consult a licensed architect, builder, or local planning professional before making final decisions on your build.